Congressman Griffith, great to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. The last time I saw you was at the advance at the Homestead, right? So that was prior to the holidays. So good to have you. Good to have you back on. Want to give a shout out to your communications director, Andy, who is fabulous. She's great.
Thank you.
I text her to get you on my show, and she's tremendously responsive and provides me with everything I need. And so tell her that I gave her a shout out.
All right, I will.
That. Now, the president's speech last night, we've been dissecting this thing 3 ways to Wednesday. Can't call out the terrorists. The other thing is, he didn't even mention our 10 sailors that were taken by the Iranians. He never even mentioned it. Did you find that odd?
I found it odd, and of course the reason he couldn't mention it is that it didn't go with what he was actually saying. As much of the speech did not really connect up with reality, that section didn't either. I mean, what he said in his speech, and it was already written when the Iranians took the sailors, and I'm glad apparently they've been released, but when they took the sailors into custody and seized our 2 vessels, not huge, but still American naval ships, he already had written his speech in which he said, in essence, that no one, we were so strong that no one would dare mess with us. The problem is that, it's just not true. We have a strong military, don't get me wrong, and we are the strongest in the world. But under the leadership of this president, we have Russian troops in Ukraine. We have the Chinese building islands in what we have declared and others have declared as either international water or Japanese waters. We have the North Koreans at least claiming to have detonated a hydrogen bomb. We have the Iranians seizing ships and taking soldiers into custody. We have the Iranians working on getting a nuclear weapon. There's some kind of a red line. I can't figure out where it is. It appears to be moving all the time in Syria. And somehow his speech wanted you to think that everything was great in the world and the United States, had its hand on the control, and that the Russians were retreating even though they were trying to shore up Syria. And then he says as well, they're trying to shore up their satellite state, and he didn't use that word, but, Ukraine. Are you kidding me? Ukraine was trying to get away from Russia as hard as they could, and the Russians grabbed onto them, and we stood by and did nothing. They now occupy Crimea, and they have some troops in the Ukraine, or in Ukraine. So, that's what he's trying to sell people. Then, go back and read that speech, and I invite all of your listeners to go back and read it. There's one paragraph in there where he talks about we're going to move from dirty energy, and we're going to take the communities that make oil and coal, and we're going to flip those over to something else, and then we're going to have them stronger while they work on 21st century transportation. How does that relate to the coal community? There may be some essence that you could say in the oil fields you could do something, but that has nothing to do with coal. Totally disconnected from Central Appalachia. What is he talking about? I don't know. It was gibberish. And unfortunately, there were large points in the speech where I'm looking at Robert Hurt, who was sitting next to me, and some others, and going, what's he talking about? Because he just didn't seem to connect with the reality on the ground. And so, look, I felt it was my responsibility to be there, but it was not, I don't think it was well delivered this time. In the past, he's given some very well delivered, even though I disagreed with his speeches. And this one seemed to be disjointed and not connected with reality, and particularly not mentioning the fact that we have an issue with Iran that night. He's in front of the American people. He's the President of the United States. He's the Commander-in-Chief, and he says nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean,
outrageous.
They had, while he was speaking, 10 of our sailors were in Iranian hands, whatever you want to call it, apprehended, custody, POWs. I don't know what you would call them. They were not free. They had two of our amphibious boats, small as you say, but they're still U.S. Navy, and they had them. And
I haven't heard. Now maybe I'm mistaken. Have they returned?
How they even?
Yeah, have they returned the boats?
We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been no statement on it, and we don't even know how they got the boats or
right.
what. I mean, were these sailors captured? I mean, what? No one knows, and he never addressed it on a speech. And you're right; it's like they had all these buzzwords they had to put in there, I guess, to tag on social media or something. It was almost, when I was listening to it, it was almost like a Facebook, Twitter speech. Like, these are all the words we have to tag, even though they don't make any sense. Let's just insert that there, insert that there. So MoveOn.org can pick it up and tweet it out, because it was completely disconnected with reality. And, you know, I got to the end of it. I want to get your opinion on this, Congressman Griffith. I got to the end, and I asked myself, I asked Ann, I said, is this just his political dream machine going on, or is this guy actually, does he believe this? Because if he does, then you have to say the word, is he delusional? I mean, he's talking about this great economy. I mean, people are underemployed, unemployed. The median income is down 8.9%, and he's talking about the biggest fear that people have is robots taking their jobs. I mean, what planet is this guy on?
Well, sadly, I will tell you that I believe that he does believe this, that he doesn't understand the pain. I mean, my district is unfortunately the hardest hit in all of Virginia. I represent thousands of people who've lost their jobs because of Obama policies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The policies of this administration have greatly hurt our economy, particularly in my district. You know, he talked about solar jobs, because I represent a district that does produce a lot of coal and used to move a lot of coal. Norfolk Southern's laid off people. We've lost all kinds of jobs as a result of these policies. And he said, well, there's more jobs in solar today than coal. That's because of his policies that eliminated a lot of those coal jobs. And then he said, and these jobs are higher, they pay higher than average wages. And this is where he used a lot of illusions. He said they pay higher than average wages. That may very well be true. What he didn't say was they pay higher than coal jobs, because that would not be true. Mm-hmm. Coal miner walks in the door, he's making $60,000 to $75,000 a year. He wants to really work his tail off, or she wants to work her tail off and get in there and work extra hours when the economy was good and when coal was allowed to be used. Could make as much as $120,000 a year. There's no way with just a high school degree and sometimes just a GED that anybody working in the solar industry, other than the CEOs and the top scientists, are going to get anywhere near that. They may be making more than the average worker, but they're not making what the coal workers are. And that's how you end up with an economy that's stagnant. It may not be in decline, but we are not growing our economy to the level which we could. And the fact that we had a huge lead on the rest of the world doesn't give him a right to brag about it.
Absolutely not. And where are these solar jobs? Do you know where they are?
Well, they're around. I mean, I don't know of any large facilities in my area, but they're particularly out west, and there's some in our area too. I'm not going to say they're not there. And look, I think solar is great if you want to put solar panels on your home, or you're building some new construction, you want to use some solar capabilities, or if you have a big wall that faces south, like Volvo in my district that makes big trucks, and they've converted that to some solar stuff. I think all that's great, and there's a place for solar. But you don't have to eliminate our staple of coal in order to move forward on solar, and that's the disconnect that this president has. He thinks you have to eliminate coal in order to make solar work. Well, that's only true if solar doesn't stand on its own 2 feet. I think solar can. I'm an all-of-the-above guy. In certain circumstances, solar can be a great addition to our energy resources. But it's not going to light every city in the United States. It's not going to heat every home in the United States. And it's not going to move our manufacturing centers forward. It's great to use it. It's great as a supplement. It does have great advantages in certain circumstances, but so does coal. And we don't have to eliminate coal in order to have solar or wind or wave or whatever else we want to move forward on.
Well, the other key element here, Congressman Griffith, is coal was not subsidized, right? Coal companies would hire the people, get in the coal mines, dig the coal out, refine it, right? Sell it. There was no government subsidies. Everything
there's
solar.
Some tax credits. I don't want to say there aren't any. There are some tax credits, but they also pay a lot of tax.
Right. Everything solar is subsidized by the government, from the tax credits to you know, how it's metered with in Virginia with Dominion Power, everything else. Everything that has to do with it is subsidized. All you have to do is look at Solyndra and some of these other, the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, saying that it was going to create all kinds of jobs, and it was this big free trade agreement, and everybody was going to be happy. As you know, I am opposed to this, like I was opposed to NAFTA and these other trade deals. One of the presidential candidates, Trump, tweeted out in the middle of it, "The incompetence of our current administration is beyond comprehension. TPP is a disaster." What do you, I mean, the average person is sitting there without a job. The purpose of the Trans-Pacific trade deal is to allow the free flow of workers, unabated foreign workers, into the United States that will, one, take American jobs away because you can't stop them. You can bring in as many as you want. And secondly, to decrease wages. You have an oversupply of workers, right? Supply and demand, wages go down, and you got Obama on TV saying it's going to provide you with jobs and a better income. I mean, is it me?
Well, I don't know that I agree with your reasoning. I agree with your conclusion, however, and that is TPP is not in the best interest of the United States as is currently written. It would be great if we could get out there and have a system that worked well in the Trans-Pacific area. But, you know, one of the things that bothers me is that we've seen these before. We haven't negotiated well. And, you know, I don't think that we have benefited as near as much as we were promised we were going to benefit. And again, my area in Southside has been hit hard. You know, textiles just disappeared. We had that big whooshing sound, as Ross Perot used to like to say,
right,
with NAFTA. We are ceding away some of our authority. I mean, the president said we have the strongest economy in the world, and, you know, we're great and our economy's great. But he's willing to give away some of that power in this Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, because when all is said and done and we start making changes or things have to be determined, we have one vote and Vietnam has one vote. We have one vote and some of these other small countries have one vote. Well, we're the strongest economy in the world, as the president said. We're supposed to, I mean, it's where you have that disconnect. If the president, you know, is out there saying that there's no way anybody can catch up with us because our economy is the greatest in the world, then why aren't we getting more than one vote when it comes to dispute resolution or to making changes in that TPP after it's been authorized? The answer is it's illogical. That doesn't make sense. It's been poorly negotiated. And the president, you know, says that we're above everybody else, but then he wants to make us at the same level as economies that aren't anywhere near ours. So whether or not it would facilitate the transfer of cheap labor, and it may, I don't even have to get to that point. What I know is historically, whenever we've entered into these deals and there haven't been some really good negotiations that protect the United States, we lose. What I know is that just on the sheer face of it, the document gives up power that we ought to retain because we are the largest of those nations that are partnering in that particular deal. And you know, if China's in, that's a different story. But we're trying to move around China. So of the nations that we're trying to make sure that we work with, we're the largest, and clearly we have the strongest economy. So why aren't we negotiating to get more? And I think that's a point that Donald Trump has made, and I am not a Trump supporter. I'm not supporting anybody. I'm staying out of the primary. I'll support our nominee. But I think it's a point that many have made, and that is that this deal has not been negotiated well. And if you could come up with a deal that made sense for the United States and helped lift the economies of the Pacific Basin, that would be great. What we're doing here is we're just giving away the store.
And, you know, I'm almost out of time, Congressman, but what you just said, I hadn't even considered this because I tried to go through the document with some people, now that it's online, and you just start circling things, and it's just, the whole thing is outrageous. But you know what you just said is there's all these countries in it. We have the biggest economy, and we only have one vote. So it's not weighted. You know, I never even thought about that. That's crazy. Crazy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm going to start saying that. I'm all right. So you just gave me a new argument on voting against TPP that I didn't have. So I want to thank you for that. Every time I have you on, I get knowledge that's beyond anyone else. You're so smart. Thank you, Congressman, for educating me yet once again.
I don't know that I'm so smart, but I look at things a little bit differently, and some people would just call that odd. But I'd rather be odd and look at things a different way and try to sort out problems, because that's how you problem solve.
Chap Peterson told me you were the most effective legislator in the General Assembly. So that's what he told me. And Chap's a pretty smart guy. Congressman, we're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Morgan Griffith for being with us. More info, griffith.house.gov. Sir, have an excellent weekend. Thanks for being with us.
You too, sir.